In 1974, there's so many Warner bottles out that I decided we need to put a book together to clarify what some of these bottles are worth and which ones aren't worth a whole lot, which ones are worth more, and put a price guide and kind of get some of the information that I gleaned from all the almanacs and picking up bottles. I put it together. So I put a book together. My wife and I, we typed it out, hand-drawn. I want to change the slides over there. Hand-drawn caricatures in the book, but it was a lot of information, quality information. A modest technical skill was available at the time, but it was the Bible on Warner bottles at that time. Now, most of the information was from the almanacs. Warner was actually probably the patent medicine king. He really, you have to look at what medicine was back in those days. And we've seen a lot of information on the Civil War and looked at what it was like to be wounded in the Civil War and be treated with the medicine that was available at that time. It wasn't pretty. And medicines going from the 1860s up through the 1920s weren't a whole lot better. Most of the medicines were alcohol or narcotics in there, or a combination of both, as well as they had a lot of herbal stuff that might have been good, might have been not. A lot of the claims, if you read the claims on the bottles, it reminds you a lot of some of the infomercials that you get early in the morning on TV. They cure just about everything. And it's very interesting to look at. But you have to remember what the state of medicine was at that time. A lot of information came from bottle shows. We go to bottle shows regularly throughout the nation. And we actually, this is Jack Stetcher, who lived in Rochester, and he actually did a lot of the information gathering at the time. And we wrote letters back and forth. We could call people a long distance at that time. So, H.H. Warner. He was born in 1842. He came from Warner to New York. He was the fourth son of 11 children. And he had an entrepreneurial spirit. He became a millionaire in the 1870s when oil was the big fuel for the country. And he was selling safes to these millionaires, or to these oil people, to keep their money in, and he was making a ton of money with selling safes. And this is one of the letters that I have here. He actually was from Mosler Safe Company at first, and I happened to find one of his safes down in the forest. It's up in the back of a building up in there. On the second floor, I tried to buy it. It would cost me more to move it than it was worth, but it's an interesting safe. It's nicely, highly decorated. It says H.H. Warner, sole agent, and they used it to put screens up against the paint screens, and the whole thing is all spattered with paint. But he also went in and had another company, the Warner Stockbridge Company, where he sold safes there. And this is his actual signature, which after following him for many, many years, to actually have a piece of paper. I picked this up here last week on eBay. To actually have his signature on something is kind of important for me. Okay, so the story goes that, and this is told in a lot of the almanacs, this is where you get your information. Dr. Craig was deathly ill of something or other. And in his delirious, whatever, dream, he came up with this concoction to cure himself. And he fixed it up even though he couldn't hardly get out of bed. The story is beautifully written. If you watch True Grit, the later version of True Grit, you can see how they talk. This is how they talk in these almanacs. It's in this great English. But he got this, and he pulled himself out of bed and he made this concoction. And lo and behold, it cured him, and he gave it to his neighbors and stuff, and it cured them. And he just had to share his discovery with the world. So he put up Craig Kidney Care Company, and this is a sample of his bottle, the label on the back of the bottle, and then the box that it actually came in. And you got to remember here again, why did they use some of these bottles, you know, like a little fish on it? These are trademarkable. Remember, a lot of these people didn't read or they didn't read well, but they could identify this as a trademark. So that's why a lot of these bottles were made with different figures, because they could be trademarkable, they could be identifiable to the people, and it just went a long ways to selling the product. So this is Craig's Kidney Care. So Warner looks at this, and again, according to stories in the almanacs, because it makes a good story, he was sick too. And little did he know, but he took some of Craig's Kidney Cure and it cured him. And being the entrepreneur he was, because he had all this money for making safes, he decided to make Warner's Kidney Cure. But he sold it as Dr. Craig's Kidney Cure for Bright Disease. This is one of his first bottles. It was labeled Colbert Warner on the bottom. It had this trademark of a clover leaf, or leaf clover. And the bottle itself is actually a Craig bottle. It says the original Craig Cure Company, Cure on the back side. So this is Warner's first bottle. He bought the company because he realized there's some money to be made in this, and he started making this. This is before he trademarked that safe. So this is what the bottle looks like. The original Craig's Kidney Cure is actually a Warner bottle. This is Craig's bottle. You notice it's somewhat like that. And then this is his later bottle that he adopted with the safe embossed on it. And we'll talk about why that is. And you notice that there is an air where the safe is pointing the other way. It was a mold air. It was used for years. If you look at all the reverse safes that you find, and you find a lot of them, these are worth about $150 versus $20 for those. You'll find that they're all blown on the same mold. Even though some of them have the blob top versus the double collar. So it was used for many, many years. The double collar top ended about 1882, 1883. Then they went to that blob because it's easier to make. So again, if you start looking at the advertisement on the labels, you find all sorts of things. This has a safe bitter, safe nervine, safe pills, safe tonic. It's for stone in the bladder, and it tells you what it's for and everything. $2 a bottle. $2 a bottle at that time is about $64 in today's money. That's a lot of money. That didn't last very long. This is in a slug plate bottle, and I don't know if I've got a slug plate here. But a slug plate is an early bottle. A slug plate. Where they take a metal plate in the mold and they put it in here, and I can blow this mold and I can have tonic bitters in here. And then I take the slug plate out and I put a mold in here that says rheumatic cure, and they blow that. Then I take that mold out and I put in one that says diabetes cure, and I keep blowing those bottles in that same mold with the slug off of it. When you're finally making enough of these bottles, you make its own mold. So that way you find that it changes. But it was made probably from early days, 1879 when he bought the company, to 1880, 1881, when it was the last time they used the slug molds. And this is when you see $2 a bottle for the price on it. A little bit later it went to $1.25, which is still a lot of money. But then most of these things were about $1, $1.50 a bottle. I don't know what rum was worth at that time, but that's the price on these things. So when you get to the almanacs, you start looking into it, and he has a lot of things in here to make sure you're getting the right product. You got stamps that go over the top. You've got boxes and facsimiles so that you know what you're looking for. And then the label on here. And then that patented trademark safe blown in the glass. And and it's got to be amber. And that was his trademark. And he sold a lot of it. These are the changes over the years. You see that it started out as Warner Safe Kidney and Liver Cure. Later it was changed to Warner Safe Cure for the kidneys and liver. Because the Warner Safe Cure company had a lot of different cures. If you start reading these labels, you'll see all the different things that it cures. It's listed on the back side, on sides here and on here. You can take a look at those if you want to later on when I'm done. But you'll notice as they go along here, and they make things like the diabetes cure, they take diabetes off the label because this is a separate cure for it. And then you've got rheumatic cure. For rheumatism, they take rheumatism off the label and put it in a separate bottle. And this goes all the way into the 1910s when that bottle in the end was made.
So when they're changing this, did the formula stay the same?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was potassium chloride, which potassium is a kidney irritant, alcohol, potassium nitrate, which is another kidney irritant, liverwort, a few other different things. That's about it. So it really didn't help you with that. Since this, I came down with sarcoid, which has a side effect of kidney stones, which kidney stones aren't any fun, so I can see what it was like to have a kidney stone back then. It wouldn't have been something you wanted, and right now you take, like cranberry juice or something acidic to break that stone down. I also had prostate cancer, had prostate removed, so a lot of this kind of stuff, I could see what some of these people were suffering from. And remember, they're only 40 or 50 years old. They didn't live into the 70s and 80s and 90s usually. So a lot of this stuff was taken mainly as some things that relieved the pain. It really wasn't curing anyone. And none of this stuff really was. It was kind of hiding it. Because there was a lot of narcotics and most of the bad medicine. This is that area that we talked about. These are the products that he made. You notice he just put in diabetes cure in here. And this is his patented bottle, which makes it great because it makes it nice for bottle collectors because now there's different bottles that we can collect based on what it is. And these are some of the early things. He sold a tonic. He sold bitters for bitter people, and then he sold a bottle that was actually tonic bitters, so you cover all the market there. They had two different sizes, and when they came out with a Nervine, that's a labeled cure. It didn't say cure on the bottle, and a lot of people collect bottles that say cure on it, so they have to have the word cure on it. This is a labeled cure, but it has to do with nervous diseases. And again, when you take a look at the label on this, and I've got one over here, as to what it cures versus that original bottle, you can see that they took an awful lot of stuff off. And it's interesting to see what it says that it's a cure. And this is the bottle right there. Everything from excessive drink, reduce pains of all kinds. And you can take it without injury. And then in 1883, he decided, okay, I'm going to come out with another line of products, and these are the log cabin products. This appealed to the pioneer type spirit out there. And you'll notice that you've got sarsaparilla, which is not root beer. Sarsaparilla was medicine at that time. Everybody know what consumption is? Tuberculosis. And then extracts were liniments. Oxybutyl remedy was just another remedy, herbal. And hair tonic was the scalpine. And he also made log cabin liver pills, which, again, most of the stuff was diuretics. So you see that Warner was real successful. And at that time, you wanted to capitalize on this success. So you look at this, and this is a Sparks bottle. That's a broken top. That's not the way it But he decided to make it look like Warner. So he made a bottle that looked an awful lot like it. This is the Craig's Kidney Cure Company, and this is the Craig's Kidney Liver Cure later on. We'll talk about that in the next couple of slides. This is a Baker's Blood and Liver Cure. Nice bottle, nice and glossy, but you notice that it looks an awful lot like the Warner bottles. And that's the reason. And again, you're capitalizing on trademarks. So, now the story goes with Craig again. After Warner bought the company, and he didn't buy it exactly from Craig. He bought it from a New York syndicate who had bought it from Craig. They won up Warner on this deal. They bought it, and they got the company before Warner could actually make a deal with Craig. Well, the problem with that was is the syndicate in New York, they sold it to Warner, and they got Warner's money, but they never paid Craig for the original business that they bought. So Craig really kind of felt lost out on all of this, right? So he goes to work for Warner for the first couple of years. And you see this in Almanac, because he's listed in there that tells you of the story of Dr. Craig and how he got sick and all that kind of stuff. So he worked with his sons for Warner till 1882, compounding the cure and putting it up in bottles for Warner. Well, as you can see, Warner all of a sudden took off, and he's a multi-millionaire, and he's making money hand over fist, which doesn't sit well with Dr. Craig, because he didn't get anything out of this. So he has his son make a formula a lot like it, just down the street from Warner, and he's working on that Craig's Kidney Cure that you saw on the other slide, in competition with Warner, which again Warner didn't like, and he's very powerful, has a lot of money, and he put them out of business. Well, Craig moved on, and he went to Boston actually and made a different line, and he still made cures because he still had this idea that he had made this cure, and so therefore he could make other cures, and he could be successful in patent medicine business. So he came up with a few other different things, and you notice he kind of copied Warner's looks here. This is a Dr. Craig's Kidney Cure with embossed kidneys on the bottle, but it looks an awful lot like the Warner bottle. He's got a nude medical discovery over here. Again, it looks like Warner's. And then he had a few other products that he put up in small quantities. One of the best-selling items that Warner had was the Tippy Canoe. This is painted on here so you can see the embossing. But Tippy Canoe is this bottle here. A lot of these are made. Nice bottle. Interesting mushroom cap. This label says dyspepsia. He also sold it as a bitters, a tonic, stomach tonic, and he advertises that this is not a bitters, because there was a lot of anti-bitters sentiment going on because it was basically pure rum. And the temperance movement was getting foothold in there, so that he was selling it as a tonic. But he also sells it as a bitters there, right? Unless you read the small print. It says, use no nostrums or formulations called bitters. But if you look at that quick, it looks like a bitters label, right? So it's not really bitters, but it's a bitters. So he's playing the game there. And then he's got, patented date on the bottom, and he labeled it in 3 different ways. This is the change from the kidney and liver cure to the cure. In 1889, I believe, Warner sold the company to a syndicate out of London, and they took it over as H.H. Warner and Company. And therefore, a lot of the bottles changed, a lot of the labels changed, because it was owned by this English syndicate. And these are kind of some things that he tried around that time, but the bottle didn't catch on, and they discontinued it, but you did find a couple odd bottles at that time. About 1973 or so, I walked into and there's an article about this in one of the magazines there that I'll show you if you want to read more information on it. I walked into an antique store in Watertown, and I found this green bottle. This is called an animal cure, 40 ounces. Just a really nice bottle, right? And this, at the time, went for about $300, $350. So 1974, this is an expensive bottle. This bottle here is green, and it says London on the bottom. And I argued with the guy that it's a reproduction, because in the 1970s they were making some reproductions. He wanted 22 bucks for it, so I bought it. He said, well, there's another one in Waukesha. I bought it out of container shipment. So I went down and bought that one. We sent them to the cure collectors around the world, around the nation, and asked them about it. And they said, well, we don't know anything about it. Well, today we know enough about English glass that we can see the color is definitely English. And these were actually a fantastic find. They seem so right now for about $4,000. I sold it for $800, but I still made some money. I paid $22 and $18 for the two. So. But I looked at it and I said, you know, I'll bet you they're making more of these over in England. And England wasn't looking for bottles so much. So remember the Antique Trader magazine? There's one like that over in England called Exchange and Mark. And I put an ad in the paper over there, looking for bottles. And lo and behold, they're starting to dig some of these, not gums, but tips, they call them. And I'm starting to pick up Warner bottles that they have over there, because Warner had a branch over there, and it was actually located. You see a lot of these are, foreign Warners. And you realize that there's bottles that are being made in other parts of the world that are offshoots of some of the companies that are in the United States. So some of these collectors would want some of these other bottles. So this is the animal cure. That's a labeled animal cure, the only labeled animal cure that was known at that time. There's only two of them out now. I had that one for a while, and these are the two green ones that I picked up. At the time, there was only one Warner Safe Cure Pressburg. And what Warner did was when he went to a different location, he put the name of the city on the bottom. So you have Warner Safe Cure Pressburg, you have Warner Diabetes Cure Pressburg. They don't know if there's a Warner's Nervine Pressburg or whatever. So you've got a whole slew of more bottles that are coming from these places. Well, what they did over in Europe was they weren't as careful about the manufacture of the bottles. So you get greens, you get aquas, you get some really strange colors of bottles to go with a pretty dull collection of amber Warner bottles, because all of them look alike. But at the time, that Pressburg was the only foreign bottle that was known. And now, these are the London bottles. This is that animal cure, all the way down to a little sample. Beautiful little sample bottle that you don't find many of them. These sample bottles sell for about $1,500 by themselves. You've got green ones like that, they'll go for $2,000 or more. But the normal bottle in the center here, which there's a lot of them, $20. So they run the gamut in there. It's a nice collection to have. We didn't know that Warner was in Canada. And in Canada, he used this bottle here with the two cities on the side, and then Rochester on the bottom. So it's a whole new bottle for us Warner collectors from Canada. And he did make two sizes of the Nervine, which is nice. But they're all amber because they were made in the United States. Then I got a call from a guy who was in an attic up in Frankfurt, Germany. He said, we found 14 bottles. Are you interested? I said, sure. You want $1,200 for the whole thing? I had money. This is about 1979 or so. So I went to my dad. I said, Dad, I'm an only child. So I said, will you loan me $1,200 What for? I want to buy some bottles. He thought it was crazy. I said, trust me on this one. So I bought the 14 for $1,200. I came back, wrote letters to everybody, and sold about 10 of the 14 that week for $350 a piece. So I paid him back, and he was quite happy with that. But Frankfurt had another bottle selection over there, which is really nice. Then I also found that not only does England read English Trade and Mart magazine, but also Australia does. So I get these calls in the middle of the night from people in Australia who had bottles to selling, and I started picking up some of the cures from Australia. And they were in business for a long period of time, and they had a lot of varieties of bottles that came from Australia. And then New Zealand also had a branch. New Zealand was nice because they put all 4 cities in there. Nice looking bottle. They weren't particular about the color. Melbourne is all amber usually. There's a little green once in a while. But these things come in all sorts of different sizes and colors, from green to really, this one is almost clear. And this one over here is so dark that you can't see through it. So there's a lot of interesting bottles that come from New Zealand. These are some of the rare Warners that that I picked up over the years. This happened to come in a half-price sale. This is 75 cents. Carol Schwartz, Mike Schwartz wife. I don't know if anybody knows Mike and Carol Schwartz. They're from Leeds. She bought it in Columbus at a half-price sale at the drugstore was going out of business. She bought it for 37 cents. That's the only one of those known. Now, Warner also made a Safe Yeast, which is a big seller. And you don't find a lot of the Safe Yeast containers because the contents keep the container up over the years. And again, a lot of the information comes from the almanacs, testimonial books, just advertising that he put out. Like any successful venture, if you've got good advertising, good marketing, you're going to be successful, and he was excellent in marketing. And he had a great story, and it really went a long ways. Again, when we talk about the language that they have, this is one of the things. There's a little picture on the almanac here of a little girl inside a safe with a tornado coming down on her. And it says, Warner Safe Pure and Warner Safe Yeast sweeps like a cyclone from west to the east. Nostrums and humbugs must vanish away as gloom disappears at the breaking of day. Then remember proverb, a word to the wise, even this little child knows where true safety lies, for where there's safe yeast, good bread must abound, and where there's safe cure, good health will be found. I mean, great stuff in a lot of these almanacs. It's really, really well written. It's a lot of fun to read. And then the advertising is just great. It's pure and wholesome. And he did belt the globe. He was in Switzerland, which we're finding he used the Pressburg and Frankfurt bottles, but he has different labels on there. And now that eastern block is starting to be dug. So we're starting to find some of these bottles that came out. He was only in Pressburg for 2 years. Switzerland was less than that. He was actually in Cambodia, but we don't know what kind of bottles he used in Cambodia. And then we talk about the demise. Everybody know about the Federal Food and Drug Act of 1906. And they started coming down on some of these bad medicines. They said, hey, these aren't really curing anybody. You really have to get a handle on these people. And they're just selling hope and drugs. And so they made some big changes. And one of the big changes was you couldn't use the word cure anymore. You had to change it to remedy. Okay? Warner collectors love that because now the bottles all say remedy instead of cure. So now there's a new set of bottles with the word remedy on there. There's also new labels that you can read. And then as the remedies, these are from 1906 to 1910. So these are around more than the older stuff. which was kind of nice to get a hold of some of these. And they weren't as critical about the glass, so they were blowing them in different colors. Sometimes they'd show up in clear. Remember, if you're making glass, whatever's hot, you might as well blow it because you put a lot of energy into melting sand, so you better do something. And so a lot of times they just blew bottles just to fill out an order with whatever it has to be. And this one here, they obviously grab some of this glass along with the green glass and blew the bottle, and then got two-tone, which you don't find very often. These are the three samples. You don't find these very often. It's pretty hard to find those, and I don't know why not. This is a product that he sold. He had in his almanacs, they did, give full page advertising, different things. This is actually from my collection. I've got it. It's full. I haven't tried it. My grandsons think that it'd be fun to see if it worked. He also made some pills. Again, a lot of these are just diuretics. And then later on, after 1910, he went to the Warner Safe Remedies Company. It was changed hands again, and J.J. May took it over. And Warner was out of the business, and it was produced by Warner Safe Remedies Company, and then they just blew one bottle, and they changed the label on the other side. Each bottle has about 6 or 8 different labels on the back side. And again, they had to have the alcohol content from the Federal Food and Drug Act. They had to be stated on there, so you've got kidney and liver remedy, non-alcoholic. You've got kidney and liver remedy, 12.5% alcohol, and kidney and liver remedy with 15% alcohol. 15% alcohol is 30 proof, guys. It's pretty good stuff. So these are some of the labeled bottles that I had. And again, you learn an awful lot just by reading labels. So Warner, after selling his company, he went up to try to regain some of it. He went up to Minneapolis, and he had some catalog companies. You don't find many of these things at all because they had to be ordered directly through the catalog. If you order something through the catalog, you're going to use it rather than something that sits on a druggist shelf and it doesn't get used, and then it gets sold later on. So you don't find a lot of these. He died in 1924 up in Minneapolis. He was basically penniless. He had these companies, but he really wasn't making a lot of money off of them. He was kind of at the end here into women's products, but that was about it. He had millions of dollars. He put up observatories. He had a huge house. He had his own island out in St. Lawrence. He was a member of the Rochester Chamber of Commerce. He was president. He was almost like a senator, like a favorite influential person in New York for a long period of time. And he made a lot of bad investments in gold futures and mines out west, and didn't make those come through. And he ended up losing a lot of money. He sold the business. They went belly up in England during the panic of 1893, so it came back to him, which he didn't really want. He ended up selling it again. So it's a tale of riches and then back to rags again. These are some of the reproduction bottles that you see. Some of these are very good reproductions, but they will say Crawford China on the bottom. These are these Wheaton reproductions, which are terrible, but they're out there. But they also made a 1970s reproduction that you used to be able to buy them for like about $6. Those things sell for anywhere between $150 and $300 now. Mainly because as water collectors, we need something colorful in our collections. We have to buy something like that. This is my 1972 collection. This is 1976. You can see it went up. I sold it in 79 to Jack Craig. Went out a few years later to try to find Jack. I happened to be in San Jose. Went to his place. He still has the bottles in the windows, knocked on the door, nobody's there. He had died. His wife had just died here a couple of years before that. And his son and his daughter-in-law had taken over the collection. And she called me and said, we would like to get in touch with you, so come down and see the collection. So I came down and saw it, and we're really good friends. Right now, I stock this collection. I spend their money buying things and water bottles. I find water bottles for them, tell them about it, and they spend the money to get some of these rare bottles. These are all different Warners. They're a large collection of different things, all from the same medicine company. Warner's buried in Skaneateles, New York. And now for something completely different. If you like to see some bottles, I just thought I'd show you a few bottles here at the end. This is an epilepsy treatment from Milwaukee. This one over here, malarial diseases. And this is my favorite cure of all, which I'm going to bring a bottle over. This one, if you look at it, it says cures all diseases. Right on the bottom. You know? And if you read the label, if you've ever seen the Williams micro killer jugs around, strength 1, 2, and 3, it tells you when to take those different things. And basically 3, you're almost died, so you should take it. And you have to take like 1 wine glass full every 3 hours or something like that. You can use it on flannel, only flannel, compresses. If you use strength 1 if you're just kind of sick, 2 if you've got convulsions. It tells you exactly how to use it. If you get a chance, read it. It's really interesting. And at the bottom it says it's safe to use in any concentration. But again, if you look at it, it's the picture is the embossing is a man beating a skeleton. Death. He's overcoming death by beating that skeleton. And it says germ, bacteria, and fungus destroyer. Now, radon was a contemporary of Pasteur, so germs and bacteria were just kind of being found out about that time. So that's what that's all about. So you may want to take a look at that. That's my cat. She wouldn't move while I was trying to take pictures of my son. So that's my collection today. Different bottles in there. And I brought some to show you here as far as, just whiskey bottles. Isn't that a great bottle to drink out of? Pineapples. And again, you won't find these things, you're not going to dig up too many Indian Queens. If you bought a bottle like this, it went on the mantle, it went up in the attic, it got saved. I mean, people are saving blue wine bottles now. Imagine if you paid $64 for something like this, you'd probably keep the bottle for a long time. So a lot of these bottles still exist today. And a lot of them are worth some good money because there is some great craftsmanship in most of these things. This is our, my wife has allowed me to put some bottles over the mantle. Okay, this is some other people's collections. And I told you about the fact that at the end of the day, a lot of these things had to be blown in different colored glass. And what I want you to take away from this is, you may have an Indian Queen at home, and it's a $500 bottle. But if you happen to have something like this, at the end of the day glass, it could be 20 grand. So there's a lot of difference in some of these based on color. So a lot of these things, there's that fish bitters in some different colors. This is a Kelly's bitters bottle, beautiful cabin. Congress bitters on the top. That bottle right there, that's that one over there in Cobalt Blue. A friend of mine up in Stevens Point bought that from a lady outside of Wapaka. She was using it to feed her horse with it because it could go down the throat. I don't know what he paid for it. He probably paid $500 or $600 for it. He sold it for $1,600 in '74, which paid a lot of house payments. He was happy. That bottle just changed hands here just a little while ago. Don't know the exact price of it, but it's between $250,000 and $300,000.
For that bottle?
This is a bottle that they made a lot of. It's Greg's Bitters. They made it from 1860 all the way up into the 1920s. And they didn't really care. They made so many of them, they didn't care what color the bottles were in. So consequently, you have a lot of really nice colored bottles in the drakes. Just bottles in general, you know, the early jugs, nice colored medicines. Usually anything cobalt had the notion was denoted as a poison. Okay, so any of your little poisons are usually cobalt. You know, nice blue barrel. They use barrels a lot. Whiskey, bitters. That ear corn we talked about, really nice. There's a good 401k right there on the shelf.
How do you clean the bottles when you find them?
Brushes. If it's a good bottle and stained, they actually put it in like a rock tumbler with little copper, cut copper, and it'll polish the outside. And that's why you'll find that most of these are really nice looking bottles, even though they might have been done. Because a good bottle, and it doesn't cost you much, $10, $15 to clean a bottle. You don't clean a common bottle, but you can clean something that's worth a lot of money because it brings it back to pristine shape.
Where do you take it to get it cleaned?
A lot of different people will clean them. You have to find somebody who, I've got a bunch of them that should be cleaned, but I don't have anybody. There's somebody out in Milwaukee, Bill in Milwaukee, Bob will show you, you can touch them. I don't have anybody who doesn't like cleaning.
Will it clean the inside also?
Yep. They'll put this copper pellets inside there and then tumble it. You have to be careful because you can tumble it too much. It also generates some heat, so the bottle, if it's got a crack in it or something, it can bust.
What's the bottle not breaking? How does it not break when you're sitting in the
You just roll it, and the copper just kind of falls and tumbles in there and just polishes the inside. This bottle right here is a really rare bottle. It was worth $20-something, and then they found a shipwreck that had like 6 of them in just off of the San Francisco coast, so that diluted the market for them. This bottle also came from Briggsville. It was covered with paint, and Dick Boosted bought it. It's a monopole bitters, very rare. Expensive bitters right now. I don't know what the cost of it is, but it came from Wisconsin. I'm writing an article for the magazine on bottles that came from Wisconsin. We've got some really good things that came from right from this area here. It's really kind of unusual. I'll show you another one here in a bit. These are those Kellys. This is a guy who he was a successful contractor, and he spent a lot of money in the 40s and 50s. And early 60s buying good bottles. I wish that I would have done that in the 50s and 60s. I'd be much farther ahead than I sold my bottle and put it in the sewing book. Kids like it. These are historical flasks. Historical flasks were made from 1820 to about 1860. They were sold for whiskey. You bought a flask, you might have bought something, the color, and then you took it down to the local saloon and had it filled and brought it back. Remember, in those days, you didn't drink anything unless it was carbonated, alcoholic, or you saw it come out of the ground, mineral water, something like that, or because water just wasn't fit to drink unless you were boiling it all the time. And they didn't know that they weren't supposed to boil it, so the bacteria wasn't the concept that they had. So those are historical flasks and some really rare colors.
Speak it up a little like
We're just about to the end.
Okay.
Pigs, bourbon is selling those. good old bourbon and a hogs, and then they got an arrow swing to the backhand. Maybe drink it out. Dish. That's mineral waters. Some turtle flasks. And then again, these are real fruit jars. If you happen to find anything that is a colored fruit jar, this is that Val Bitters that actually came from Wisconsin also. Very rare bottle. They make nice windows. A lot of different shapes. And again, these are all 1860s to 1880s. And this is the final slide. Great trade card with all the different things that it cured. Female remedy that never was a cure. It's always a remedy that was drug aid. I didn't have anything to do with that. My wife hates it when I say that. Okay. Any questions?
You on the brown bottles talked about that you painted the embossing.
Yeah.
What did you use, and can you also do it on the third bottle? And
Yeah, just use a water-based black or white paint.
like a Sharpie or
I just use a paint and then steady hand with a little brush that I cut most of the stuff off.
I was gonna ask you, because in the past, I know very little about bottles, but if I find a bottle somewhere, I always look up to see if there's bubbles in the glass. At what point in time did that cease to happen?
Bubbles are in every bottle, no matter whether you see them or not. And I do color measurement on some of these really expensive bottles. A bottle has to say something. Okay? Just because you've got a nice old bottle doesn't mean it's worth anything. It's got to be something that somebody's going to collect. People collect things that say Cure. They collect things that are from Portage. They collect things that are from Wisconsin. They may collect just sodas. They may collect Hutchinson sodas. They may collect beers. Wisconsin has beer in every little town. Historical flasks. Milk bottles. Milk bottles. Great collection. Milk bottles.
But is there a point in time when, like in the 50s, when all of a sudden, the air bubbles in the glass
1915, when you get machine-made bottles, that kind of is a cutoff. That's why if you can find something that's a bimodal, an old pilot, that means you're in an old section of dump. You can also look at the bottom and see what kind of bottom.
Where do you find those almanacs?
Oh, yeah, right now you can find them on eBay like crazy, which is probably the best part. Where to find them. You find an awful lot of stuff. It's taken a lot of the fun out of collecting, where you used to have to go to flea markets and antique stores and this kind of stuff, and now you just scour the internet every night and find stuff from around the world.
At Werner's factory, did he own all the commodities and materials that were necessary to make the bottles, like the fuel?
He didn't make the
sand?
bottles. The bottles were made with somebody else.
Oh, he just
And
made
brought to the
pure.
factory. And the factory's still there. I went there one evening when I was in Rochester. My wife and I, we walked down the old road and we went to it's an apartment building. And you can walk into the lobby and they've got a sign that this is Warner's thing and all this kind of stuff. And you can actually walk around the back of the building and you see where the loading docks used to be, where they come up with the horse wagons and stuff, full of all this stuff. It's a really neat building, 6-story building. Still sitting there.
So he commissioned all those bottles from another manufacturer. Do we know who manufactured them?
I don't know who actually made those. I should. A lot of the early ones, slug plates, were made by NDH Chambers, but I don't know who made the later bottles. I'd ask Jack Stetcher out there. He knows.
Were shipwrecks the source of old bottles?
Ships were a great source of old bottles because they use them for ballast. And you'll find a lot of interesting bottles over here that are English, and they came over with as ballast inside ships, and then they're just dumped and cargo was put on. This is you can see or this would be heavy on the base and it wouldn't tip over. So it can be in a rolling ship, and it's just not gonna tip over.
What was in the bottle?
Probably rum.
Have you ever found a bottle that still had something in it that was?
Oh, yeah, we get those a lot of times. This still has the contents.
When did they stop making or when did they start making the screw tops?
They actually made screw tops and some of the things back in the 1850s. If you look at the Mason's patented 1858 fruit jar, that's a screw top. But it had to be hand done, so it wasn't something they could make easily. And then once they got into your ball masons and things like that, you could make a lot of them. And then when they got to the point for medicines, they could make them in the 1920s or so. They started making screw caps. Otherwise, they used cork right up through the 20s. And not everybody changed over just like that to the automatic bottling machine until 20 years.
Now, you also said before that there were a lot of bottles that were made in the U.S., but then were shipped over into Canada, and they were filled
The
there.
product was filled here and then shipped over.
I see. Was it because they didn't have the manufacturing facilities in Canada?
Well, the important thing is a source of fuel to make the glass. So, and then you've got the glass, and then you have to ship the glass someplace to have it filled. And it's just like any other business, supply and demand, depends on where you're located. But a good successful brewery or a successful soda company or something like that, they had their own bottles, and they wanted them returned because they were expensive. So if you were a brewery and you got somebody else's bottles, or you're a soda works and you got somebody else's bottles, you broke them or threw them out back because that was expensive for your competitor.
And they could reprocess that good broken glass?
No, they didn't.
They didn't reprocess?
They can. They go to take and call it and redo some, but most times it's just refill that glass.
I'm gonna make them up.
Sorry, one question, does glass ever fade?
Yes, it does fade.
I noticed it on the windows.
If you look at purple glass, okay, if you've got manganese in it, which you put in to make it clear, manganese will change valence states. The outside electrons jump to orbital. And it's purple. So anything that's a color is a Warner Safe Cures and Warner Safe patent medicines that are from the 1880s and up to about 1910. I've brought a lot of bottles that are just kind of indicative of what bottles were. We talked about, a lot of these bottles were made this way because they were trademarkable. They were basically rum. They were rum to get around the tax that was paying for the Civil War. And they basically date from 1860 to about 1890 or something. National Bitters Iroquois. Fish bitters. Dr. Fish's bitters in Washington on the scale. My favorite, not an Aunt Jemima, but Indian Queen. This is from patented 1867. Beautiful bottle. These things didn't get thrown away; they were saved. So therefore, there's a few of those still around, even though they're 150 years old. Whiskey decanter. I mean, it's just great to be able to pour something out to drink out of that. Milk glass bitters. Pineapple shake bitters. Again, these are all just trademarkable bottles. Here's a Warner's bottle that was basically bitters. Again, a nice shapeable log with a nice different top to it. We sold it in 3 different varieties. This is another bitters, log cabin shape. This was in business, St. Drake's, from 1860 right up to the 1920s. Here's an early Panacea. It's got a nice whittled color to it that you can see, whittled glass. It's caused because it's a wooden mold and it was wet, and the water would break away from the glass and form that whittled effect. It wasn't smooth. And then I brought a couple really early bottles. This is probably 1600s, maybe 1700s. A ship bottle. You see these in the Caribbean. And then another crude bottle. These are early, probably 1700s, early 1700s. These are some historical flasks. This one is a George Washington Jackson flask. Again, they were made in the 1830s, 1840s. Here's a Union clasped hands. This is trying to get the Union to stay together before the Civil War. Another George Washington, father of our country. Flask. Beautiful embossing, embossed heart remedy from Dr. Kilmer. Here's an embossed kidney on the bottle. This is obviously a kidney and liver cure, again from Dr. Kilmer. Just looking at cures, labels tell you an awful lot. Here's a rheumatic remedy, nice labeled bottle. This is my favorite, Radham's Microbe Killer. Man beating a skeleton on the back. Germ, bacteria, and fungus destroyer. States right here, it cures all diseases. And then we get into some of the Warner products. Warner started out with a kidney and liver cure. And it basically has a patented Warner safe and Warner's kidney and liver cure. This is a Warner safe rheumatic cure, different cure for whatever else here. This bottle cured diabetes. This is Warner's tonic bitters. It says tonic bitters across there. And then these are just a couple labeled bottles. This is a remedy after they had to change from the word cure to remedy in 1906. These are log cabin products. Notice the nice patentable bottle and a spot for a label on the flat side. And then these are Warner lookalikes. This is a baker's blood and liver cure. They made this in the Warner